Something is happening right now in the United Kingdom that will change your life forever. Whether you rent, whether you own, whether you're hoping to buy your first home, or whether you're a landlord counting on rental income. This week, one of Britain's largest house builders quietly admitted something that should terrify every single person watching this. They just wiped £900 million off their books. Not lost in a bad deal. Not spent on failed projects. Simply erased because the land they own has become worthless. £900 million gone in one accounting adjustment. And they are not alone. The entire house building industry is collapsing around us while the government pretends everything is fine. What I'm about to share with you will make you understand exactly why your rent keeps rising, why buying seems impossible, and why the housing crisis is about to get dramatically worse than anyone is publicly admitting. Here at UK Property Point, we have been tracking this situation for months, gathering data that the mainstream news refuses to cover properly. What we found is genuinely alarming. The top 10 house builders in Britain have collectively written off £3.7 billion in land value in just 6 months. To put that number in perspective, that is more than the entire annual economic output of some European nations. This money has not been lost through bad luck or market fluctuations. It has evaporated because these companies bought land at prices that made sense when interest rates were near zero and house prices were climbing every month. Now those same plots sit empty because building on them would bankrupt anyone who tried. Let me explain exactly what this means for you. When a house builder writes down land value, they are publicly admitting that their most important asset is worth far less than they paid. They bought fields and brownfield sites across England, Wales, and Scotland, thinking they would build profitable housing estates. Now they cannot build anything without losing money on every single home. The mathematics have completely collapsed. A plot purchased assuming homes would sell for £300,000 now needs those same homes to sell for £400,000 just to break even. But British families cannot afford £400,000 houses. Many cannot even afford £200,000. So the builders sit paralyzed, owning land worth billions on paper that they cannot touch. The numbers are staggering when you see them laid out clearly. Persimmon owns enough land to build 90,000 homes. Taylor Wimpey holds 68,000 plots. Barrett controls 80,000 potential house sites. Across all the major builders, there is land for over 400,000 homes that have not been built. Think about that. We constantly hear politicians talking about housing shortages, about the desperate need for new homes, about young families struggling to find anywhere to live. Yet the biggest builders in the country own enough land for 400,000 houses, and they are choosing not to build a single one. This is not about planning permission or bureaucratic delays. They have the permission. They have the designs ready. They have construction teams waiting. They simply cannot build without losing money. In 2023, builders submitted planning applications for over 300,000 homes across Britain. Can you guess how many they actually started constructing? Just 43,000. That means 86% of approved housing projects were abandoned before a single brick was laid. The government knows this. Internal documents show ministers have been aware for 18 months that builders are deliberately sitting on permissions rather than constructing homes. Their proposed solution is threatening to revoke planning permission from companies that do not build. But this completely misunderstands the problem. Builders would rather lose their planning permission than construct homes at a loss. Every house they build right now loses money. No business survives by intentionally losing money on every product it creates. The financial reality facing builders has become genuinely impossible. The average cost to construct a 3-bedroom house in Britain now sits around £240,000. The average selling price in most of England is approximately $260,000. That leaves a margin of £20,000. £20,000 sounds like profit until you consider the reality of construction. One delayed material delivery, one subcontractor problem, one unexpected ground condition, one complaint from neighbors, and that entire margin disappears. Most builders are now losing money on every home they complete. They are not just struggling. They are bleeding cash with no way to stop it. The smaller building companies are being destroyed at a rate that should make headlines every single day. Last month, 412 construction companies entered administration. That works out to 13 businesses failing every single day, including weekends and bank holidays. These are not cowboy builders or dodgy operators. Many were established firms with decades of experience, employing hundreds of local workers, building homes for generations of British families. They are disappearing overnight because the numbers no longer work. I spoke to someone who knows a builder in Manchester. 30 years in the industry, 200 employees, respected throughout the region. He is closing down next month. His situation perfectly captures what thousands of builders face. He can lose money slowly by not building, or lose money quickly by building. Either path leads to the same destination: total financial ruin. What makes this crisis permanent rather than temporary is the complete collapse of development finance. House builders do not typically use their own money to construct homes. They borrow from banks against the value of their land and expected sales. But banks have discovered something that terrifies them. The land they would lend against is worthless as collateral. HSBC has stopped all development lending to builders with less than £100 million turnover. That single decision cuts off approximately 90% of UK builders from any financing whatsoever. Lloyds has reduced their development lending by 60%. Santander will not touch land deals at all. Without bank lending, builders cannot construct homes even if they desperately wanted to. They own assets worth billions on paper and cannot access a single pound against them. The banks are protecting themselves by cutting off the entire industry's oxygen supply. There is another dimension to this crisis that guarantees it will last at least a decade, possibly longer. The construction workforce is vanishing and cannot be replaced. Bricklaying apprenticeships have fallen 78% since 2019. Carpentry training has dropped 64%. Plumbing apprenticeships barely exist anymore. Young people have watched their fathers and uncles get destroyed by this industry. They have seen skilled tradesmen laid off, companies collapse, pensions disappear. Why would anyone train for 3 years to enter a dying profession? The average age of a UK construction worker is now 53 years old. Within 7 years, half the workforce will retire. There is nobody coming behind them to replace their skills. Worse still, experienced workers are leaving Britain entirely. 15,000 construction workers immigrated to Australia last year. 8,000 went to Canada. They find double the wages and actual job security abroad. Even if housing demand returned tomorrow, we could not build because we no longer have the workers. Training a skilled bricklayer takes years. Those are years we do not have. Something happened internationally that directly connects to British housing collapse. China's property market imploded. Evergrande, Country Garden, and other massive developers defaulted on their obligations. You might wonder what Chinese property problems have to do with British housing. The answer is everything. Chinese investors were keeping British new build developments alive for years. They bought properties not to live in, but as investments, often purchasing entire floors of apartment blocks off-plan. That money has completely vanished from the market. In 2019, Chinese buyers purchased 23,000 UK new build properties. Last year, they bought just 1,200. That represents a 95% collapse in Chinese demand. But the real damage goes deeper. Chinese investors often bought the units nobody else wanted. Studio flats with no natural light, awkward layouts, bad positions within buildings. By purchasing these undesirable units, they made entire developments financially viable. Without Chinese money absorbing the properties, British buyers reject. Developers are stuck with unsaleable stock. There is a development in Birmingham with 80 studio flats that has been on the market for 2 years without a single sale. The developer is now offering 50% discounts. Still, no buyers. Your pension is almost certainly exposed to this crisis in ways you probably never imagined. Legal and General, Standard Life, Aviva, and other major pension providers own significant stakes in house-building companies. Fund managers believe builders were safe, defensive investments. Government-backed demand, steady returns, essential products that people always need. What could possibly go wrong? Everything, as it turns out. Persimmon shares have fallen 63% from their peak. Taylor Wimpey is down 54%. Barrett has collapsed 58%. Hundreds of millions in pension value have been destroyed. But direct share ownership is only part of the exposure. Pension funds own land that builders lease, commercial property that builders use, bonds that builders issued. When builders collapse, all these connected assets become worthless. Industry estimates suggest 16% of UK pension assets have direct or indirect exposure to house building. That represents approximately £200 billion of retirement savings at risk. What happens next will reshape British housing permanently. When private builders collapse, they will not be replaced by British companies. International megacorporations are waiting for exactly this moment. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund has earmarked £40 billion for distressed UK property. Singaporean investment vehicles are raising dedicated UK opportunity funds. Canadian pension funds explicitly target failed British builders. They will buy land banks for a fraction of their original cost, wait for markets to stabilize, then build rental-only developments. British families will never own these homes. They will rent from international landlords forever. This is already beginning. A Middle Eastern fund recently purchased a failed development in Leeds for 20% of original construction cost. They will finish it and rent every unit, never selling a single property. The entire future of British housing is being sold to foreign capital while we watch our own builders collapse into administration. The housing supply situation is about to become catastrophic. This year, builders will complete perhaps 150,000 homes. Next year, optimistically, 100,000. After that, projections suggest 50,000 or even fewer. Britain needs 300,000 homes annually just to prevent the situation getting worse. We are about to build 1/6 of that requirement. The resulting scarcity will make any standing property incredibly valuable, regardless of condition. Landlords will have unprecedented power because desperate tenants will accept anything available. Rents will climb to levels that would have seemed impossible just years ago. Quality will decline because scarcity means people accept substandard housing rather than face homelessness. The social consequences of this collapse will test British society in ways not seen for generations. Youth homelessness has already increased 400%. Families in temporary accommodation have reached record numbers. 3-generation households are becoming normal because nobody can afford to move out. When the construction pipeline truly stops, when new homes drop to near zero, social cohesion will face unprecedented strain. You cannot have a functioning society where only wealthy families have stable housing. The government is modeling scenarios where civil unrest becomes likely, where housing becomes such a crisis that normal political solutions fail entirely. They are not planning for recovery. They are planning for containment of the damage. If you found this information valuable, consider subscribing to UK Property Point because we are committed to bringing you the truth about British housing that other channels ignore. The property-owning democracy that previous generations enjoyed is ending before our eyes. Homeownership is becoming a historical curiosity rather than an achievable aspiration. Future generations may rent from birth to death, never accumulating the housing wealth their grandparents took for granted. The builders collapsing today are not just companies failing. They represent the end of British housing as we have known it for a century. The numbers are undeniable. Billions in write-offs, hundreds of thousands of unbuildable plots, 13 builders collapsing daily, 90% of development finance withdrawn. This is not a correction or a temporary crisis. This is an extinction event for UK house building. And extinction events do not have solutions. They only have consequences that unfold across decades.